So you'll be able to refer to it later if you need to, or if someone wasn't able to attend the meeting. We're going to go fairly fast and get this done in less than an hour. So here we go. For starters, we'd just like to say welcome, and that this entire system is based on the concept of feedback. And what we mean by feedback are three things. By feedback, we mean appreciation, we mean coaching, and we mean evaluation. And what we've learned from the research, and this research comes from this book called Thanks for the Feedback, is that people grow and learn the most when they're getting specific feedback around appreciation for what they're doing, coaching for how to make minor improvements, and then evaluation. At some point, everyone needs to know where they stand. And so the system, the 5 pillars, is built on those 3 concepts: appreciation, coaching, and evaluation. And it's similar to what you do with students as a teacher, because as a teacher, you're going to be giving your students feedback throughout the year, and that feedback's going to come in 3 forms. It's going to come in the form of appreciation, coaching, and evaluation. So to start off, we want to show you the 5 pillars. We made some improvements to them based on the feedback we got from the people that used the system last year. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to introduce my colleague, Luke Zedwick, who's been working with me on this material. And I'm going to unmute you, Luke, if you want to weigh in here, or you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. I worked for 8 years in SCIO and connected with Rob on a professional basis, and I'm excited to help you guys develop your system.
So this brochure here is a PDF of the system. As you can see, we kind of put it together and reorganized it a little bit based on the feedback. I'm going to copy this link and put it into the chat so that you can download it and have it. And I assume by now in Zoom, everyone knows how to go to the chat and use it to get resources or ask questions. If you're not sure how to do that, then just look for the Zoom bar at the bottom of your screen. Look for the chat and go to that chat area, and you'll be able to see that. So Trish said she had to request access, so I'm going to make that available. I'll make sure those settings are right. Luke, are you able to put your PDF in there?
No, for some reason it's blocking me, but we'll get it worked out. I'm going to keep at it.
Okay, so I will. We'll get the settings adjusted on the PDF here in a moment after we go through it. But so this PDF, it has the 5 pillars. The first pillar is high positive relationships, and there's 3 targets in positive relationships. And the essential question for that is, how are you improving relationships with your portion of the school community? And each pillar has a rationale. And I won't go through those now because you'll have access to this. Pillar number 2 is high expectations, with the targets of performance culture, data-driven, equity-focused. The essential question being, how are you building a culture that balances high expectations and the growth mindset? Followed by pillar 3, quality curriculum. And there's a essential question for that. What is your definition of the quality curriculum? Pillar 4, engaging instruction. And then pillar 5 is meaningful assessment. So those are 5 pillars that the system is built around. And it's similar to the ones that you used last year, but we made some improvements in some of the particulars. So we're going to do an activity now where we're going to have you break out into 5 breakout rooms, and each breakout room is going to look at one of the pillars. So I'm going to go to my settings here, teacher in Harrisburg, then you will have this process. So the system starts with a self-assessment, and every teacher in the district will complete a self-assessment. When you click on the form, it'll ask you for each pillar and target, it'll ask if that's a strength for you or an area you want to grow in. And you just read the targets and make a decision. Now, I would encourage you to try to be as honest and transparent with your supervisor as possible in declaring your areas of strength and areas that you may not have had enough practice or training in. Because an area of growth doesn't mean you're bad at it. It just means that you know that you would like more practice in that area and or training. So you go through and check each of those boxes through the 5 pillars, and then you'll reflect on the areas you marked as strengths, and you'll reflect on the areas you mark as opportunities for growth. And after you reflected on those 2 areas, so you should have, everyone should have some marked strength and some marked growth. You hit save and submit, and then your supervisor will be able to see what you marked. If you want to come back later and just work on it and come back, you can always hit save progress. Now, when you hit save progress, you'll see these little blue dots here. That means you started it, but you're still working on it. This form is due at the end of September, and it takes it'll take you about 15 minutes to complete. The goal form is due at the end of October. You click on this goal form, and this is where you set goals for student learning and growth. So the state requires two student learning growth goals. So you talk about the target population of the students that you're looking to help learn and grow, the baseline data you're collecting, the target that you want to try to hit for their learning, the performance area or content area that you're basing this goal on, your rationale, why you chose it, and your assessment that you're using. This assessment area might be the area that you start with in terms of, if you say are a music teacher, then you might just be looking at a collection of student work. In other words, you're just going to be looking at the work they're doing. Okay, if you have a grade level or a PLC, or you're using the MAPS assessment, then the MAPS assessment would be in this area. I don't know in COVIDville if the state test is something that will or won't happen, but so you may not be able to check that one. Or if you have a locally developed assessment that you've developed for your classroom, or that you have you and some teachers have come up with, you could use that. Your PLCs. You describe your activities that you're going to do to achieve that goal, and then what support you need from your supervisor. So you do 2 of those goals, and then after you complete those 2 goals, you'll set 1 professional growth goal. Now, to set the growth goal, you can click on this link and it'll take you to the targets, an explanation of them. So it'll give you some more, just show what each target is. And you're going to pick a couple of them, maybe one, maybe three. It's up to you that you want to really focus on this year. And that's all it takes to complete the goal setting form. Again, this is something you don't have to do all in one setting. You can work on it with your PLC team. You can set a team goal. You can set a school goal if you wanted. It's up to you to decide. If you're experimenting with some new assessments and you want to use those, you can do that as well. So you do these two things to start the year, and then at some point during the year, prior to your formal observation, you're going to complete a lesson plan document. So you'll be in communication with your supervisor, and they'll set up a time for your observation, and then prior to that observation, you'll complete this document. And this will just be a guide so that when your supervisor observes you, they'll have some context around your lesson. So when they observe you, they'll be at least in there for a minimum of 30 minutes. They'll usually stay there for the whole period. And so you want to be able to let them know what standards you're covering, which pillars you may or may not be focusing on in this particular lesson. It might be all of them. It might just be a couple. How you might be covering them or targeting them, learning targets, how you plan to make the lesson relevant, engagement strategies you're going to use, any assessments you might be using. Have you thought about differentiation for this lesson, and then any resources you may have used. You could also add some comments about the lesson to your supervisor. You can also add an artifact. You can click on this button and add maybe a file you're using or a website. In addition, you can put attachments, assessments, etc. Anything you add to any one of these forms will also automatically go into this area called My Folder. And by the year's end, in this attachment area, you would have a number of attachments, and it would be your collection of evidence. So it's optional to put attachments in, but it's something that you're able to do if you like. You always go to tasks when you're using this system, and it shows you the things that you need to do this year. So your supervisor is going to complete this formal observation form. So you don't really have anything to do with this form, but I'm just showing you what it looks like. So when they set this up with you, they'll complete these questions. And at the end, you'll be able to, after you see the feedback they give you, you'll be able to write a response to that feedback. They may be asking you questions, and then you can answer them right here. So this will save you a meeting, because you'll be able to just communicate via the system. You can always schedule a meeting if you want, but it's not required. Then the final thing you'll do at the end of the year is you'll reflect on your goals. And this is a very simple form where you'll just talk about the progress you made on your first goal and any next steps you might have for it and your second goal. At any time, you can click on this little clipboard here on the right and see previous forms in your file. So you can go back and look at the goal that you set. Oh yeah, that was the goal I set. I'd forgotten about that. And then reflect on it. Okay? So this lets you see that. Your supervisor will be doing other work throughout the year. That's why the numbers skip. So those are all jobs the supervisor is going to do. So as the supervisor does those jobs and those forms, you'll see them fill up your file. The rubric for the system is built in. So at any time you can go and take a look at it. Each target is listed on the left, and the different performance levels are to the right. Okay. So that is